So we talked a little about how early nutritional changes might change development. How about early exposures to stress?
So early exposures to psychosocial stress can have really important impacts on biology as well. I've been working with some students recently on a comparative biology analysis to try and understand how prenatal...
What do you mean by comparative biology?
So looking at observational experimental studies across species.
So seeing how different species do it.
Exactly. Yeah, and trying to see whether or not there's consistency or differences amongst different species with respect to how prenatal stress exposure impacts offspring stress physiology functioning.
So I'm going to guess that your prediction is that in species where it would be useful to have stress responses adjusted, that you'd see it, and you wouldn't see it so much in other ones. Is that right?
Yeah, what's actually really interesting is that we see these sorts of changes pretty consistently across species. So when we're talking about stress physiology architecture, it's actually a really evolutionarily ancient system. So it's the same physiological system is present in very different species, suggesting that it's been under very strong selection to be maintained across evolutionary time. And what's more, the fact that offspring are pretty consistently, their stress physiology is pretty consistently modified by prenatal stress exposure suggests that this is probably an adaptive response that's been selected for across time as well.
Do we know anything about the biochemical mechanisms that might make that possible?
Yeah, it's not entirely clear the ways in which offspring biology are affected. So one way is that maternal stress physiology can actually program offspring stress physiology vis-a-vis, in mammalian species anyways, crossing the placenta. So stress hormones can actually cross the placenta and potentially program offspring stress physiology functioning.
And it actually changes which genes get expressed, I understand.
Yeah, so another potential mechanism whereby maternal stress is hypothesized to influence offspring development and offspring stress physiology functioning is through what are known as epigenetic mechanisms.
Epigenetic sounds like a fancy word.
It is, not that fancy. So epi literally means above, genetics, the gene. Yeah. So it's chemical changes to the gene that
does the gene actually change, or does it just stick something on top of the gene?
It sticks something on top of it, yeah. So the nucleotides, the letters, if you will, don't actually change, but a little chemical tag, if you will, can be placed there and potentially modify the way that genes are turned on and off. And so what's interesting about those little chemical tags is that they're sensitive to environmental experience. So things like psychosocial stress, nutritional stress, or pollutants can all modify whether or not those tags are present, and then how genes are expressed.
Are there things that globally affect methylation? For instance, like taking folic acid in pregnancy?
Absolutely, yeah. And so there's, so nutritional factors can definitely influence methylation.
Yeah. Is there any chance that the obesity epidemic that we're seeing now has anything to do with different experiences in pregnancy of infants or of fetuses?
It's definitely possible, yeah. So this whole life course developmental plasticity sort of perspective suggests that environmental experiences in very early life are probably really important for informing later life health. And so one of the reasons why this sort of research is so important is because it suggests that a lot of bad health outcomes may actually have their origin in prenatal or really early life environments.
So I'm guessing if you had to do one thing to improve the health of the world, it would be, I'll let you say it.
Improving maternal health, maternal child health.
Yeah. So what would you actually do? Now you're in charge of public health for the entire world and you want everybody to have better health. What's the first thing, where would you invest your resources?
Probably a lot of nutritional and psychosocial support for women, not only in pregnancy, but also across their lives, right? So really enhancing maternal environments so that they can be as healthy as possible.
Kids come out better.
Yeah, yeah. And also we want women's health to be better too, right? So
and men too.
And men too. Yeah, they're in there somewhere. Yeah, but a lot of times when we're talking about maternal child health, it all becomes about the child, right? Which is really important, but we want to support women for women's sake as well.
Right, right.